I get a lot of comments on my videos saying you're English, yet your content is American. So it's time I delve into what England was like in the 90s and 2000s, and at the end of this video, hit me in the comment section to see if my content is still American. Now there are some distinct differences with the UK and the US. This is football. This is a bin. This is a pavement. And these are chips and these are crisps. But how different were the 90s and the 2000s? Let's start with the Monday Night War. Someone had commented saying in England we didn't experience the Monday Night War, that wrestling just hadn't made it here yet. I mean, it's not like insurrection and rebellion were held here yearly from the year 2000 and 2003, which is actually during the Attitude Era. But what was the Monday Night War actually like for us in the UK? Well, firstly, you had to have Sky to watch the Monday Night War. So it was for the rich kids, but I had a loophole. My granddad taped Raw for me weekly, so I never missed an episode from 1996 to 2002. And that was the year we actually finally got Sky, which is like cable in the US. Me and my friends would come to my house and gather around our TV VCR combo and watch Raw and practice the moves on each other. We'd fly off the top rope, which was basically the top of the sofa, frog splash each other, then cut promos on one another. My house was a WWF house. My best friend Sam, he was a WCW house. And we'd argue every break and lunchtime at school about who the greatest was. He loved Sting. I love Stone Cold. I fell in love with Sting playing Nitro at his house. He fell in love with Stone Cold playing Warzone and Attitude at mine. So did we get to flick through the channels to see which you were watching on Monday nights? No, we didn't. Did we get the weekly episodes of both WCW and WWF and argue about it? Absolutely. Our Monday Night War was more like a Friday war. Now let's take a look at wider TV and films. One really frustrating thing about living in England was we generally get most movies and TV programs 3 to 12 months after the US. Now in movie theatres it could be 3 or 4 weeks later, but let's take Toy Story. In the US it was released in November 1995, and in the UK we had to wait 4 months to get it in March 1996. If we look at Friends Season 1, this was released in September 1995 in the US, and in the UK we had to wait till March 1996, where we get weekly episodes all the way up to the end of August / the start of September. By the time the US was starting Season 2, we were just finishing Season 1. This was the same for Buffy, March 1997 for the US, and in the UK, October 1997. This didn't stop us from being by the TV for every episode of Buffy, The OC, One Tree Hill. We were just simply a season behind, and yes, my American friends, this is what we watched. We just also watched Coronation Street, EastEnders, and Emmerdale with this. Our after-school cartoons and Saturday morning cartoons were Arthur, Hey Arnold, Wild Thornberrys, Rugrats. In England, we actually survived the scariest kids program of them all, The Demon Headmaster. And yes, we even got the Disney Channel Nickelodeon Cartoon Network via Sky. So were every single program watched the same? Absolutely not. I think very few Americans will understand who Claude Greengrass actually was. But every single person in the UK and the US will know who Keenan and Kel were and who Tommy from the Rugrats is. And yes, we went to Blockbuster every Friday night. Well, as many Friday nights as we could to rent a game or a film. Now let's talk about one of the biggest things to come from the 90s, Pokémon. The US received Season 1 nearly a year and a half after Japan, and we received it 5 months after the US. And for us, it was a Saturday morning cartoon sat in front of the TV with our Cocoa Pops. Pokemon was huge in the UK. We had Pokemon swap meetups in Woolworths. The games were the same, the cars the same, and yes, we even kept our Charizard in our wallets. Now let's talk about music. No mum, this was never just a phase. My playlist today is the same as it was growing up. Blink-182, Jimmy Eat World, Green Day, Korn, etc. Blink's album Take Off Your Pants and Jacket was released in the same day in both the UK and the US. Now we had Kerrang and later Fuzz to feed our rock addictions. And obviously MTV was absolutely everywhere in the UK if you had Sky. Our music was the same in both countries. The only difference is we didn't really get any country songs apart from Uncle Kracker Follow Me. Eminem had our parents terrified. Whilst white boys dyed their hair blonde and started to walk with attitude, something that we did have a lot of in the 90s and 2000s was parents drinking and the violence which came with that. Eminem, to me personally, was a voice for how I felt on the inside and hundreds and thousands of others. Now, the US gave us McDonald's, which we couldn't supersize, but the US got dominated by our Spice Girls. And whilst from McDonald's, this was our play place. Getting invited to a McDonald's birthday was the absolute ultimate flex. You'd walk into the McDonald's store and you'd see the balloons on the sticks. You get the party bags with the theme chairs. And yes, the US, we even had our own McDonald's adverts. But we also had something called the Wacky Warehouse, which was a bit of a better play place. So we did have an alternative birthday party venue that we'd visit. It's kind of like the UK's version of Chuck E. Cheese. And then we both went to Toys R Us stores. Our first UK store opened in 1985, and toys-wise, well, there were not too many differences. The band Rollerblade Barbie was released in the US and the UK in 1991. Our Furbys woke us up in the middle of the night, and we genuinely believed Beanie Babies would be our inheritance. Super Soakers and Wars balloons for the summer months, playing Pogs for keeps, breaking your ankles on the moon boots, failing to keep our Tamagotchis alive whilst we're brushing our troll's hair. You get the picture. Some things we did play in the UK which US didn't was the game Conkers and Kirby. Gaming though feels similar. We accessed the same game consoles from the Dreamcast to the N64 and PlayStation 1. We all knew someone who could chip your computer and get you knockoff games, and we all left the games on pause as we went outside praying that mum hadn't turned it off by the time we got home. There are 5 areas of distinct difference: how we dressed, schools, snacks, weather, and sports. Now, in the UK, we had very few, if any, baseball fans, but we did have some ice hockey fans. In the school that I went to, we had an ice hockey team called Manchester Storm come and visit our school, and it had some of us hooked, and the PlayStation 1 ice hockey games were absolute next level. We did play basketball, and everybody wanted to be Michael Jordan, but again, this wasn't something that we could actually really watch. Our sport in the UK is football. The original football, not soccer. And when we look at a dress code, we used to be jealous of the US. They got to wear what they wanted to school, and we had to wear a school uniform, a blazer, trousers, shirt, and a tie. Honestly, that really sucked. And the US had cool big yellow buses. Now, we did have a legend bus driver called Keith, but he was driving a bus which would break down at any given moment. School was very similar in primary school, or should I call it elementary school. We did parachute day. We'll put glue on our hands and we'll peel it off. We had overhead projectors. We didn't have a Tracy Creeper, but we did have Yikes pencils and a Pepsi pencil case. The biggest difference was actually high school. In high school, we had no cheerleaders. Prom was introduced to the UK with its US influence. We had no jocks. I mean, we had a bunch of pricks at school, but no jocks and no pink ladies. But the US also had no chavs, and it probably evened itself out. Now, we couldn't do extracurricular work to help our grades. We did our work and we were graded on that work. But we still made our calculators say boobies. We boinged our rulers and we played British Bulldog at lunch, which was a bit like your Red Rover, but more extreme. Now, snacks is a really interesting one because every other time we had random shots which would input US staples and charge a premium. Lucky Charms, Dunkaroos, Surge and Twinkies were the envy of every British person. And I was a sucker buying them from the money I earned from my paper round. Oh yeah, the paper rounds are different too. We had to post the papers through the letterbox, not throw the papers on the lawn. Now, in the UK, we were not overly bothered by Hershey's chocolate, as we had Cadbury's, which back then was significantly better. Hershey's did try and break the UK market in 2003, so we had access to it, but it failed at that time. Cream Savers were stable for both of us, as were Push Pops. In the US, you had Gushers, we had Starburst Juicers. We both drank Sunny D to turn ourselves orange, and we both wrongly pierced our Capri Suns. And Hubba Bubba Tape, yes, we even ate it like this. Now, the US snacks are on steroids to what we have in the UK, which is both good and bad in a way. In the UK, we altered our food restrictions and made them more strict, so what we're actually consuming was probably more safe. But the taste of the US snacks kills us every single time. It tastes incredible. The UK in the 90s and 2000s was heavily influenced by US culture, and as a kid, I wished I grew up in the US. The neighborhoods looked absolutely insane to me. The lifestyle and everything in the US is just bigger and better. But you see those green electric boxes over there? Yeah, that's where we used to meet before going on our adventures. We'd get home from school and jump on MSN and leave cryptic away messages. We'd call our friends' landline and somehow get past mum and dad before we could speak to them to ask if they were coming out. We'd knock on doors to see who was playing out, and then we'd see the pile of bikes in the grass version. That's where we knew everyone was. And then we'd stay out until the streetlights came on. We were kicked outside all day, drank from the hose pipe, and every friend group had that one friend whose kid mum wouldn't let them back out once they'd gone for a drink. We rode BMXs, scooters, skateboards, we built forts, we played knock and run, we threw stink bombs, climbed trees, and disappeared for hours on end with our parents never knew where we were. And maybe that's the thing about childhood. It doesn't matter whether you grew up in England, America, Australia, Germany, Japan. The snacks might have been a little bit different. The schools were different. The accents are definitely different. But childhood, universally, childhood feels the same. So is my nostalgia content American? Maybe. But maybe that's what made the 90s and 2000s so special. We were the first generation where the kids around the world grew up sharing so many of the same movies, games, music, and memories. We were the last generation to grow up without social media, and then the first to grow up with it. Maybe that's why so many of us smile at the memories that we see on these nostalgia videos, no matter where we grew up.